The headlines: Barbados records its highest first quarter growth in years. Mayor Mottley fingers PM Stuart as no confidence motion opens. And Rangers rock St Barnabas in netball. Welcome to Nation News for Tuesday, May the 10th, 2016. Thanks for joining us. A strong winter tourist season has given the economy its highest first quarter growth in years. Central Bank Governor Delal Worrell said the economy expanded by an estimated 1.7% between January and March. This is in comparison to the 0.5% recorded in the same period last year. The governor's first quarter economic review was issued later than usual, prompting criticism from opposition and business circles. Dr. Worrell forecast 1.6% economic growth for all of 2016, mainly as a result of tourism and related activity.
Summer airlift capacity is forecast to be up 4.5%, with increases from the UK and US. Total investment in infrastructure, tourism facilities, and alternative energy is expected to be 23% higher than last year. The fiscal deficit for 2016-17 is projected to be 5% of GDP on the basis of expenditures approved by Parliament in March 2016. This compares with projected nominal growth of GDP of 2.5%, real growth of 1.6% plus a deflator of 0.9%. implying a further increase in the gross debt to GDP ratio.
Opposition leader Mayor Mottley used her opening gambit in the no-confidence motion against the government to lay the blame for the country's ills directly at Prime Minister Stuart. Speaking before a packed public gallery, Ms. Mottley chastised the Prime Minister for not putting his personal stamp on issues confronting his government. As examples, she complained in her marathon speech that Mr. Stuart did not personally visit water-starved residents in St. Joseph and St. John or get publicly involved in the impasse between the two teachers' unions and Education Minister Ronald Jones. The debate drew a large crowd in and around Parliament buildings. Scores of red-clad Barbados Labour Party supporters gathered outside the West Gate from about 9 o'clock. Prime Minister Stuart says planned oil offshore exploration is aimed at boosting the country's overall development and not just generating revenue. He was speaking on Monday when it was announced that Repsol, a Spanish company, will be drilling for oil and gas. The company has been awarded the Black Belly Block off the West Coast under the Offshore Petroleum Program, which was launched in 2007.
The management, promotion and development of the Offshore Petroleum Program forms part of government's overall strategy for building a sustainable energy future for the country. This is dovetailed with a wider national strategy geared towards economic growth, resource maximization, capacity building, and infrastructural development. It is in this context, therefore, that the award of the Black Belly Block to Repsol SA represents another bold step in Barbados' journey towards the realization of its offshore petroleum potential.
Sir Roy Trotman has called for the retrenched workers of the National Conservation Commission to be rehired. He made the request as the Employment Rights Tribunal resumed hearing on Monday of the unfair dismissal case brought by about 30 workers represented by the Barbados Workers' Union, of which he was once General Secretary. Sir Roy said the last-in, first-out rule in sending home workers was not followed by the NCC, and people with 15 years of service were sent home while those with 5 were retained. The president of the Nurses Association, Blondell Mullins, says government needs to invest more in its healthcare workforce. She was addressing a church service to mark the start of Nurses Week.
Nurses have been at the forefront of many of these gains, but we would all acknowledge that more can be done. Indeed, the nursing workforce is increasingly well educated and able to connect with citizens, community, policymakers, and each other. However, the need to adapt and and change more quickly is evident, and the challenges set out in the coming years will require a new generation of innovation and leadership. As nurses gain a higher profile in the development of local, national, and international responses, we need to have confident, well-informed leaders who understand their role in developing a workforce to meet new challenges. Government needs to invest in the health workforce to strengthen health systems.
The emergency ambulance service could be moved into a new home at Wildy in St Michael. The service has been operating out of a temporary headquarters at Gemmont's Lane that have drawn criticism from workers for their poor condition. Minister of Health John Boyce said the government remained committed to providing good conditions for workers.
You're one, or maybe one of the 4 that Dr. Baer has already discarded. You know, in Barbados, we love to discard equipment very quickly. We go around to other countries and we recognize that they have vehicles that run for many, many years. They reach the technical obsolescence.
Mr. Boyce was speaking at the handing over of 2 new ambulances valued at $380,000 to bring the total fleet to 11, with 7 currently functioning. Head of the ambulance service, Dr. David Barr, said officials learned some lessons after receiving the previous set of ambulances from NASCO, and some modifications have been made.
We've learned from our experience with the first 4, and we've actually fortified these ambulances with stronger stretchers and 1 or 2 other changes. The stronger stretchers, we realized that we needed a more durable stretcher, which would allow for our heavier patients. Unfortunately, there's a society for which we do see a lot of heavier, almost quasi-bariatric type patients. So we've had to actually improve the stretcher to allow for that, along with some of the terrain and so that we would have had to traverse.
MP James Paul is worried about the effect negative publicity about wayward behaviour by school children is having on the wider youth population. Speaking at a youth farming program event, Mr. Paul accused unnamed education institutions and organizations of pursuing what he called selfish agendas.
It has become, in some cases, quite cool to buck authority and to even disrespect it in order to cause attention to be focused on the sometimes selfish agendas of certain individuals and organizations. And we see today, even in our education institutions, an example of such a thing happening. In this environment, young people are watching on and taking note of these behaviors and are just falling in line with them, unfortunately. It is regrettable that the educational institutions seem to be the followers of this trend and is leaving an impact altogether negative on our young people.
In sport, C.O. Williams Rangers got the better of their traditional chief rivals, Pine Hill St Barnabas, in Division 1 netball on Monday night. Rangers, who had lost their 2 previous matches, capitalized on poor shooting from St Barnabas to win 41-23. Shaquila Davis scored 22 goals and Nikita Payne 19 for the winners. St Barnabas, with a plethora of national players in the side, played poorly in the midcourt, turning over the ball frequently. Shanika Thomas top scored for them, with managing just 10 goals. And finally, an Israeli man has petitioned for a restraining order against God, claiming the Almighty has been particularly unkind to him over the years and that the police are unable to do anything. The man, named by Israeli news site NRG as David Shoshan, represented himself at a court hearing in Haifa, a port city in the north of Israel. The report noted that God was not present to defend himself. The court heard God had been particularly unkind to Mr. Shoshan, treated him harshly and not nicely, though no specific details were given about what exactly had happened to make him feel this way. The request for a restraining order was denied by the presiding judge, who said the request was delusional and that the petitioner required help from sources outside of the court. And that's Nation News for Tuesday. For more news, log on to nationnews.com and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And remember to pick up your Midweek Nation on Wednesday or subscribe to our e-paper.